John Glenn's story.
Did you know that if you were born after 2000, during your entire life there has been someone living in space? That's thanks to the International Space Station, which celebrated its 20th anniversary of continuous human habitation in 2020. You've probably heard a lot about the incredible science that happens on board the station, but the outside is actually prime real estate for all kinds of experiments and technology development too.
The International Space Station is a great platform to demonstrate service and technology because it provides power, data, there's robotics in space.
With Tech on Deck, we'll be talking about some key experiments that have taken place outside in the harsh environment of space, which will help us advance human exploration.
Nexus is NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Project Division at the Goddard Space Flight Center. The goal of the division is to usher in a new era of more sustainable, affordable, and resilient spaceflight, both near the Earth, around the Moon, and deep into the solar system. Many members of the Nexus team started off with the Hubble telescope servicing missions. We've taken that technology, applied that to robotic servicing.
From robotic refueling missions that will help spacecraft live longer and journey farther to autonomous navigation systems, NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division has taken advantage of the wonderful opportunity station offers to test new technologies. As we look to exploring our solar system and beyond, and establishing a sustained human presence in space beyond low Earth orbit, many of these technologies will play a key role.
We use the robots on Space Station to demonstrate the technologies needed to enable satellite servicing in the future. We've also used the robots on Space Station to do some of the more repetitive tasks or the dangerous tasks that astronauts shouldn't be doing, like going outside the space station to try to look for ammonia leaks. Robots are very good at moving fine, delicate positions, moving back and forth, doing those sorts of tasks that would be challenging for humans to do.
In order to live in space, astronauts will first need to reach their far-out destinations like Mars. This will require refueling and replenishment of oxygen supplies, things the robotic refueling missions worked to demonstrate on station. They will also need to be able to construct, maintain, and repair their habitats, as well as adapt to unforeseen circumstances.
Because we're in space in low Earth orbit, we have lighting conditions that are representative of objects in space. And so allows us to launch tools and modules into orbit, put them on the space station, and then use those robotic technologies and all the infrastructure that comes with the space station to mature those technologies in a way that's much, much less expensive than if we try to launch our own satellite and demonstrate those for the first time, not using the space station.
For these endeavors, Nexus's work with astronaut tools, satellite servicing, and on-orbit assembly and manufacturing will do the trick.
We develop the technologies that are needed to advance exploration in ways you can service satellites in the future, build satellites and build structures on orbit, refuel satellites on the way to other planets, repair those satellites much like we do on that side of space station. Both humans and robots are used to maintain habitats in space. We're developing technologies that can be used by NASA and others to make those a reality.
The International Space Station is the perfect testing ground for technologies that will be used to propel humans farther than we've ever gone before. The station is helping us build the necessary foundation to make it possible. Outside of the International Space Station, space can be a lonely place. Most satellites are designed to live their lives alone, and we've yet to find life outside of Earth. This means that when we launch a spacecraft or satellite, for the most part it's on its own, and has a limited lifespan based on when critical items like fuel run out, or something breaks. You wouldn't throw away your car if it ran out of gas, and thanks to the advent of modern-day robotics, software, and computing power, we will soon be able to apply that logic to satellites. We are on the cusp of breaking the one-and-done paradigm that exists for most satellites. An important step in that direction is NASA's Robotic Refueling Mission, or RRM, demonstration on the International Space Station. Because refueling a satellite that was not designed to be refueled has never been done before, practice is key. With that in mind, the first 2 phases of RRM took place on station from 2011 to 2017, and tested the tools, technologies, and techniques to refuel and repair satellites in orbit.
RM and RM Phase 2 were designed to demonstrate end-to-end refueling of a spacecraft, as well as the first steps of cryogenic refueling or replenishment. We wanted to use the robot on the International Space Station to be able to demonstrate the technologies and techniques to do this refueling, so we built innovative tools to bridge the gap between the robot and the payload interfaces.
Consisting of a module or box affixed to the outside of station and robotic tools, the demonstrations use station's Dexter robot to operate tools and test servicing tasks such as cutting and peeling back protective thermal blankets, unscrewing caps, turning valves, transferring fluid, inspection, and intermediary steps leading up to refueling.
Once we were all done, we were able to transfer fuel end-to-end through a spacecraft fill and drain valve that wasn't designed to be robotically refueled.
The RRM demonstration helped test and prove technologies that will make refueling satellites not designed to be refueled possible, something that will be further demonstrated by NASA's On-Orbit Servicing, Assembly, and Manufacturing 1 mission. But it also helped to lay the groundwork for designing future satellites in a way to make them more easily serviceable.
These missions were important because we needed to demonstrate in orbit that this technology was ready. There were a lot of people that felt that at the time of RRM that the technology was so far in the future that they didn't feel what we were talking about was possible. So we needed to demonstrate in orbit this technology so that we could start changing the paradigm and incorporate these technologies into the future spacecraft designs and missions.
RRM Phase 1 and 2 were all about preparing an interface for refueling, which in many ways is half the battle. To robotically refuel a satellite, you need to perform a series of highly dexterous tasks to even access the valve. The next step is to actually perform refueling tasks, which is what the next phase, RRM3, has been demonstrating on station over a series of operations since 2018. RRM is a critical piece of the sustainable spaceflight puzzle that helps us with the ability to robotically refuel, repair, and maintain satellites in both near and distant orbits, well beyond the reach of where humans can go today. For generations, Mars has beckoned. Now, the red planet is within our reach. But how do we get there? The key is in the details, and in the technology. First and foremost, you need fuel. This is not only true for getting to Mars, but for any form of deep space exploration. Being able to replenish fuel on a long-duration journey means massive amounts aren't needed up front, freeing up space for other important things. Enter Robotic Refueling Mission 3, or RRM3 for short. This demonstration launched to the International Space Station in December of 2018 and has helped us develop tools and techniques needed to replenish cryogenic fluid in space. Transferring cryogenic fluids has never been done before in space. These super cold fluids can be used as propellants, coolants, or for life support systems. Being able to replenish these fluids that run out, otherwise known as consumables, is an important part of the Sustainable Exploration Roadmap. Not just for Mars, but for NASA's Artemis program, which will land the first woman and the next man on the moon. Since refueling cryogenic fluids in space has never been done before, RM3 tested the technologies and techniques needed to make that possible. First, we sent the RM3 payload and its 3 main tools to space station, where astronauts assembled the parts.
When I was living aboard the International Space Station in the spring of 2019, I was fortunate enough to take part in the very small part in the robotic refueling mission 3. And my job was to unload the components of the actual RRM3 from one of our visiting vehicles, and we take it into our Japanese experimental module, the GEM, where we have an airlock. And right inside of the airlock, we unpacked all of the boxes, much like you would a piece of furniture that you had to assemble yourself at home. So unpacked all of the pieces, we did a checkout, we worked with the ground, we got everything assembled, and then we placed it into the Japanese airlock. And from there, we were able to put it outside of the International Space Station. So my involvement in RRM3 was the physical final assembly of the actual components.
RM3 was delivered to the space station by a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 16th Commercial Resupply Services mission and installed on the outside of station by the Canadian robot Dexter. Dexter then picked up the tools from the JEM airlock and installed them onto the RRM3 payload. The ground operations team was now ready to begin operating the 3 tools to test how they would work in space. For the first set of operations, conducted in August 2019, Dexter used one of the RRM3 tools to prepare the RM3 module's interface for transferring cryogenic fuel. The second set of operations was then conducted in October 2020. For these, Dexter used one of the remaining 2 tools to insert an 11-foot-long hose in an open port and the other snake-like camera inspection tools simultaneously to verify the hose's position in the inside of RM3's tubing. This marked the first time that Dexter had tools in both arms working the same tasks simultaneously. The RRM3 demonstration added experience and information to NASA's knowledge base on the storage and transferring cryogenic fluids in space. It is currently still on station, where it will conduct one final set of operations in mid-2022. For getting to the Moon, Mars, and beyond, cryogenic fluids will be used as propellants and to maintain life support systems for astronauts. The Mars atmosphere is made up of carbon dioxide, which could be converted to liquid oxygen, a type of cryogenic fluid that can be used both as propellant and for breathing. Astronauts may be able to fuel rockets or replenish their oxygen supplies using compounds found in the Martian atmosphere. A tool on the Mars Perseverance rover called Mars Oxygen In Situ Resource Utilization Experiment, or MOXIE, is set to demonstrate the first ever conversion of Martian carbon dioxide to oxygen, which is another important piece of the puzzle. In order to make a sustained human presence in space a reality, humans and robots will have to work together using technologies like those developed by RM3 and MOXIE.
A lot of people ask about, whose job is exploring outer space? Is it robots or is it humans? And I believe that it requires teamwork between robots and humans, and that our exploration is not complete or even possible without both. So robots can go farther, they're less expensive, and they can go for longer periods of time. They don't require as much maintenance. You don't have to feed and care for a robot, much like you do if you send me back to space. So like the Mars rovers, the Galileo that explored Jupiter and its moons, the Hubble and the soon-to-be James Webb Space Telescope, they are doing missions in locations that humans, to this point, don't have the capability to go. There's also something very important about humans wanting to know what it's like to be there. It's not enough for humans to take a picture of Mount Everest or Antarctica and say, oh, okay, that's what it looks like. The human condition is we are born to explore. We're born to say, what if? What's just beyond what we know? And what is it like to be there? And so the human side of space exploration, first of all, it's orders of magnitude closer to Earth. We have not been able to send humans nearly as far as we've been able to send robotic probes. But they're 2 very different missions, and they serve a different type of curiosity.
Mars and deep space are calling human explorers. and RM3 is a step toward helping NASA answer that call. Though it sounds complex, the idea is simple. Having the ability to refuel will allow NASA to embark on longer journeys to explore the depths of our solar system. Did you know there's a three-eyed raven currently perched on the International Space Station? Not an actual bird, but rather a technology payload that is helping NASA develop a relative navigation system, or autopilot, for spacecraft. Launched to station in 2017 aboard a SpaceX Dragon on the company's 10th commercial resupply services mission for NASA, and installed on the outside of ISS by station's Dexter robot, Raven is equipped with 3 distinct camera vision systems: visible, infrared, and LiDAR. Combined with NASA-developed software algorithms, this rotating module of technology keeps a weather eye on arriving spacecraft. Raven's head, containing its 3 eyes, or cameras, is always on the swivel, which is made possible by its integral gimbal.
Raven is an on-orbit test bed that was built to mature technologies related to relative navigation sensors and algorithms. Raven was launched to the International Space Station aboard a SpaceX Dragon capsule in February 2017. And it's been operational on the space station since that time. So using 3 different sensors on Raven that are on a movable gimbal platform, Raven can track the incoming visiting vehicle to station all the way from very, very far away, all the way up to where they dock with the space station. So basically, at any given time, Raven can tell you where the incoming visiting vehicle is in space relative to the space station and what attitude or pointing direction it is.
Raven sends the data it collects from tracking and observing incoming spacecraft to its processor or brain, called SpaceCube. This information then tells Raven how it needs to move to continue to track the spacecraft and gauge relative distance and positioning. NASA engineers have taken what they've learned from multiple Raven observations over the years to adjust and fine-tune the relative navigation system as needed, so it's ready for the upcoming on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing 1 mission, which will robotically refuel a satellite, among other things.
Raven is a sensor system that can image an object, process those images on board in real time with advanced algorithms, and calculate the pose of the object relative to itself.
These factors come together to create something like spacecraft autopilot. Much like a self-driving car can maintain cruise control based on the speed of the vehicle it follows, 2 free-flying spacecraft will be able to dock with one another using this technology. Though this operation is similar to the autonomous docking of visiting spacecraft to station, Raven's unique application is necessary for docking 2 satellites with the challenges of each moving and rotating in every direction during the rendezvous and docking phase.
Using that information to then guide the first spacecraft to autonomously rendezvous with and dock with the second spacecraft. So that means finding it in space, aligning with it appropriately, and then bringing the 2 vehicles together without smashing them into and destroying each of them, all without human intervention.
This capability is the kind of thing you need for docking with spacecraft that were not originally designed to be docked with and serviced, which happens to be a vast majority of them. That's why Raven's time on station is critical for the future of on-orbit servicing, assembly, and manufacturing, or OSAM. The OSAM-1 mission will use Raven's relative navigation capability to autonomously, meaning no humans involved, rendezvous and dock with the satellite, and then telerobotically refuel it. This will be the first time in history a spacecraft not originally designed to be serviced will be refueled as a means to extend its operational life. Raven is also important for future exploration missions.
Raven's technologies can be applied to future NASA missions because if humans want to make a footprint in the solar system beyond low Earth orbit, which is where the International Space Station is located, we're going to have to rely on some form of autonomous docking technologies in the future. Whether it be an unmanned cargo vehicle meeting up in orbit around the moon, refueling tankers located in geosynchronous Earth orbit, or a return vehicle arriving on Mars in advance of a crewed landing, All of these feats will require the technology we're developing with Raven.
Using its 3 eyes, Raven is looking to the moon, Mars, and beyond.
Relying on highly robust autonomous systems becomes more crucial the further you move away from Earth as the communications time increases drastically. Once you move past low Earth orbit, it becomes very impossible for humans on Earth to do these highly complex maneuvers in real time. It's more efficient to allow computers to perform these sequences autonomously without human intervention.
Although Raven has successfully concluded its main mission objectives, it remains on station. Meanwhile, its team on the ground is using what they've learned to develop more never-before-seen technologies that will enable future space exploration.
Before I started digging in that other bag, here you go. No problem.
If you need to fix something in space that wasn't designed to be fixed, it's going to take all the experience you can get. With that in mind, when the International Space Station's Alpha Magnetic Spectrometer, or AMS, needed repairs, NASA's Johnson Space Center and Goddard Space Flight Center used their joint expertise to make it happen. At Goddard, that expertise resides in NASA's Exploration and In-Space Services Division, or NEXUS, which evolved from the office that was responsible for the Hubble Space Telescope servicing missions. Key to these missions was the development of specialized tools. While you've probably heard of Hubble, you may not be as familiar with AMS, so let's start there. Designed for a 3-year mission of sifting through cosmic ray particles, AMS has been looking for signs of dark matter from its position on station since 2011. Hundreds of researchers have used the data collected to investigate the source of the mysterious substance to help us better understand the origins of the universe. To continue this important data collection, AMS needed an upgrade due to general wear and tear from the harsh environment of space, specifically a new cooling system. A repair could extend its life beyond what was originally planned. Sounds easy enough, right? In fact, due to the instrument's complexity and the fact that it was not designed to be repaired, even gaining access to the system to replace it was difficult. AMS's design did not incorporate the kinds of interfaces that make spacewalks easier, or have the ability to be serviced with traditional multi-purpose tools. And so, over the course of 4 years, NASA got to work designing and developing some of the most complex spacewalks since the Hubble servicing missions in the 90s and early 2000s to fix AMS.
The AMS tools themselves were unique. They were built specifically for this task, a task that was never intended to be performed on a spacewalk. And so that required a lot of thinking about how we were going to get inside so that we could access the tubes that we needed to cut into and then install the new thermal control system, but also how to put handling aids on it so that we had a place to attach our tethers, to attach our foot restraints, to have handholds, have a place to attach equipment that we needed out there.
NASA developed 20 specialized tools to make the job possible, and on November 15, 2019, astronauts Andrew Morgan and Luca Parmitano got to work. On this first spacewalk, astronauts needed to get access. By design, 5 of the tools could be seen floating off into space, attached to the debris shield that was removed to give the astronauts access to the heart of AMS.
The debris shield handling aid was one of the first tools that Luca installed on the EVA, and this gave us a handhold to install on the debris shield to work from, but also a handle for me to hold on to ultimately when we jettisoned it overboard to the aft side of the ISS, which was a lot of fun to do.
The astronauts continued with 3 more spacewalks over the next 2 months, using all of the specially designed tools. One such tool was the tube cutting guide, which was a direct result of multiple practice sessions at Johnson Space Center facilities like the Neutral Buoyancy Lab. While practicing, astronauts communicated the need for a way to identify and verify the correct tubes to cut, since they all look the same to the astronauts' eyes within the spacesuit.
After we had removed the debris shield and the VSB cover, now we have the tubes exposed, and we actually had to cut into those tubes in order to pull out the correct ones to connect with the new thermal control system, the new pump. In order to do that, we had to be very sure of the tubes that we were cutting. These ingenious tube cutting guides installed over the top of the tubes and made sure that we knew and we were communicating correctly with the ground team to make sure that we were cutting the correct tube at the right time.
In January 2020, Luca Parmitano and Drew Morgan completed the fourth and final spacewalk to repair AMS. Because of their work and the ingenuity of tool designers and engineers, the instrument is now back in commission and able to continue to collect data about the origins of our universe for years to come.
People from Goddard and JC spend a lot of time developing these tools with their knowledge and the support of astronauts like Chris Cassidy. And we are very thankful that we were privileged to use those tools and to put them to very successful use. Thank you very much.
Upgrade work continues outside the space station. An updated strategy for landing Artemis astronauts on the moon and unsealing pieces of the past. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. On March 23rd, the crew on board the International Space Station conducted the second spacewalk this month to continue upgrades to the orbiting laboratory. During the outing, NASA astronaut Rasha Shari and European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer worked to install new thermal system and electronics components on the station's U.S. segment. They also worked to install a power and data cable on the Columbus module's Bartolomeo science platform, replace an external camera on the station's truss, and conduct other upgrades to station hardware. Also on March 23rd, we announced plans to create additional opportunities for commercial companies to develop an astronaut moonlander that can transport humans between our lunar orbiting space station known as Gateway and the lunar surface for missions beyond Artemis 3, which will be the first mission to land astronauts on the moon in more than 50 years. The announcement is part of a strategy by the agency to pursue two parallel paths for continuing lunar lander development and demonstration, one that calls for additional work under an existing contract with commercial partner SpaceX, and another open to all other U.S. companies. This effort is meant to maximize NASA's support for competition and provides redundancy in services to help ensure NASA's ability to transport astronauts to the lunar surface. One of the last unopened Apollo-era lunar samples collected 50 years ago during Apollo 17 has been opened at our Johnson Space Center in Houston. Sample 73001 had been kept vacuum-sealed and in pristine condition in anticipation of the day that scientists equipped with advanced technology could examine it. The Apollo Next Generation Sample Analysis Program is studying the sample and others like it as we prepare to send astronauts back to the moon for more samples on upcoming Artemis missions. On March 21st, the number of confirmed exoplanets or planets outside of our solar system ticked past the 5,000 mark. The milestone was reached when the latest batch of 65 exoplanets was added to the NASA Exoplanet Archive. This stream of exoplanet discoveries that began 30 years ago includes contributions from NASA's TESS, Kepler, and Spitzer space telescopes, with more discoveries possible in the future from our James Webb and Nancy Grace Roman space telescopes. On March 22nd, the newest U.S. European sea level satellite named Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich became the official reference satellite for global sea level measurements. This means that sea surface height data collected by other satellites will be compared to the information produced by Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich to ensure accuracy. The satellite, which is named after NASA's former Earth Science Division Director, the late Dr. Michael Freilich, was launched in November 2020. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
NASA celebrates Women's History Month.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready for the event. How do you hear me?
Houston ACR, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Houston ACR. How do you hear me?
I've got you loud and clear. How me?
Got you loud and clear as well. Please stand by for opening remarks.
Hi, my name is Khalees Roberts. My question is, do you hear sounds in space?
Hello, Clarice. How are you doing? We do hear sounds in space. We are inside of a spaceship that has air in it, and therefore we can hear. We need air to be able to hear it. So when we're in a space suit, we are out in space, but still we have a little bubble of air in our helmets. And so, yes, I can hear my fan going inside my spacesuit. Any sound my spacesuit generates, I can hear. But in the vacuum of space, outside our spaceship, outside of my spacesuit, can't hear a thing. There's no air, and therefore it's completely silent.
Hi, my name is Whitney. My question for you is, what is the most unusual thing you've seen in space?
That is hard to answer, the most unusual thing I've seen in space, because we see amazing and delightful things every day, even inside of our space station. But the thing that surprised me the most, I think, was I was looking out the window and something went flashing right by the space station, it looked like. Turned out it was a shooting star, but it was towards the Earth. It was between the space station and the Earth. I was very surprised to see a shooting star below me instead of looking up in the sky at night.
Hi, my name is Grace, and my question is, do you feel any pressure, like from your clothes, while in zero gravity?
Very interesting question. Yes, you can feel your clothes, but you feel it in different places. My shirt right now is kind of rising up and touching the bottoms of my arms. And so I can feel clothes on me, but it just feels like it's touching me in different places than it would if I were standing on the ground or sitting on the ground.
Hi, my name is Keon Weir. My question is, have you found any evidence of plant life in space?
Well, you may know that we grow plants here on the space station. We've done that many times before. So outside of the space station, on other planets, on other planetary bodies or asteroids, there's been no evidence that NASA or others have found of plant life. No evidence of life, at least as we know it, there yet. However, the building blocks for life, such as carbon molecules and slightly complex carbon atoms and molecules, we have found. We found methane on Mars, for instance. We found potential evidence of having water on another planet before, on Mars, for instance. So that means that the building blocks of life do exist on other planets and other places, and it just remains to be seen if we're going to find life, such as plants or anything more complex than that, elsewhere in our solar system or in the universe.
Hi, my name is Keilani, and my question is, how would you describe the sunset and sunrise in space?
Well, it's very fast, the sunset and the sunrise is up here. It only takes a few seconds to go by. As you probably know, we experience about 16 sunrises and 16 sunsets every 24-hour period, every day. And it just takes a few seconds to go by. But it's very beautiful because it's a very bright light. The sun just comes straight into our windows and into our eyes. You don't even want to look at it. But then you see a beautiful blue ribbon of the atmosphere as the sun starts to rise, and then you can see the Earth start to glow below us with colors and clouds that you've seen from Earth, pink in the clouds and deep blues, and then it looks like morning, and then you have a bright daylight, and then the sunset looks a little bit like it does on Earth, except it's happening below us out the window with beautiful golds and reds, and then suddenly the sun is gone and we're in darkness.
Hi, my name is Anthony. My question is, can you bring animals into space?
Yes, we can bring animals in space. We've done that before. We've brought mice up here before. We've brought insects, a number of animals that we've actually studied since we've been here on previous missions as well. And it's very important to understand how all animals live up here, including humans. And so the space station can support that life. And we have everything we need to be able to have animals live up here with us and to be able to study them. And it's kind of nice sometimes when we have those extra crewmates aboard.
Hi, my name is Makai Ware, and my question is, are there any other planets that can support life?
We don't know if there are other planets that can support life, but we want to find out. And the James Webb Telescope is up there to look for one thing, to look for that, look for signatures in planets that are orbiting other stars. It seems that there is evidence that Mars could have in the past supported life because there is evidence that water used to be on Mars. Given the chance with so many stars and so many planets, I think one of these days we're going to find out that, yes, there is evidence for life on another planet. But we'll wait and see. It'll be a very exciting discovery.
Hi, my name is Diane, and my question is, do you stargaze in space?
We try to stargaze in space. We're very busy. And to look at the stars on the space station, because it's bright inside with the lights on, we have to go to a window and wait for a while for our eyes to adjust to the darkness. If we have enough time to do that, which might take about 5 minutes, then we can see some beautiful stars. It's probably see more stars than if you were to go outside of a city into a field somewhere on a cold winter night and look up on the cloudless sky and see millions and millions of stars. It looks a bit like that. The difference is that the stars don't twinkle. So it's very surprising when you look at them. There's no atmosphere for the starlight to come through. And the planets look like steady red-colored dots, which is quite surprising as well. So when we get a chance, we try to stargaze in space.
Hi, my name's Kaylin Njoku, and my question is, when did you learn how to play the guitar, and can you play in space?
I started playing the guitar when I was 17 years old, once I had gotten to college. And I do have a guitar here with me. I didn't bring it up. There's just one already up here. So I have had a chance to play just a little bit. There's not a lot of time to play guitar, but it's fun when I get a chance to play.
Hi, my name is Angela. My question is, what would you consider to be the most challenging adjustment you had to make to travel to space and to stay at the International Space Station?
So there are a lot of adjustments to make, not only leaving Earth, but then living in zero-G. The hardest part about leaving Earth, probably an adjustment you have to make, is saying goodbye to all your friends and family. The hardest part about coming to the space station is you arrive and it's almost like you're starting life all over again. You have to learn how to dress. You have to learn how to eat without getting food all over yourself. You have to learn how to go to the bathroom. You have to learn how to move around. I'm holding myself down with my toes right now, and I had to learn how to do that and get adjusted to it. So just doing the day-to-day things, and on top of that, getting a lot of work done, as we do in the laboratory up here on the space station, putting that all together is quite challenging and quite an adjustment when we get to the space station.
is Cortez. My question is, since you orbit the Earth 16 times per day, how do you know what time to go to sleep and wake up?
Well, you might not be surprised to find out we go to sleep and wake up when the ground and mission controls around the Earth, when they tell us to. So we've all decided to set our time at Greenwich Mean Time, which is about the time that London is in. And so we just set our clocks to that. And humans are pretty adaptable, so we're able to change our clock for wake up or going to sleep whenever we need to. So that's what we do. We wake up at Greenwich Mean Time at about 6 a.m. The ground tells us to, so our alarms go off then, and we get to work.
Hi, my name is Tyler, but you can call me Ty. My question is, how do you avoid collisions with moving objects in space?
Hi, Ty. There are a lot of really smart people with very powerful radars that are watching almost everything that's orbiting the Earth and tracking them for us. It's called the Space Surveillance Network. So what they're doing is tracking objects, and if they think an object is getting close to the space station, they have a lot of complex mathematical algorithms that say, hey, there's this chance. They put a number to it. There's this amount of chance this object is going to hit the space station. And so we've decided, and NASA management and others have decided, that if the risk is getting to be a little bit too high, we might have to move the space station out of the way. Fortunately, as the object gets closer, we get a better idea if it really is going to hit the space station. And usually we don't have to move to get out of the way, but sometimes we do. But those powerful radars are very essential now in the modern space age for us to be able to stay up here safely in space.
Hello, my name is Royce Workman, and my question is, what is your daily schedule on the space station?
Hi, Royce. Every day is busy, and every day is different, and every 5 minutes sometimes is different. I've done about 15 totally different things today already. Usually we do what you would do on a day: wake up, brush our teeth, eat breakfast. We kind of do a little bit of homework, maybe read the news, but then we go to work, and we'll be working, I think, a total of about 14 hours a day. Work includes exercising. We have to spend about 2.5 hours a day exercising. But we have our meals like you do on the ground, and at the end of the day, we have a little bit of time to talk and enjoy each other's company, but we're pretty tired, and so we go to bed at that point.
Hi, my name is Selah, and my question is, are you doing any research on how microbial life develops in space?
Hi, Selah. Yes, as a matter of fact, we do, and we're doing it right now. There's an experiment called biofilms, which we're trying to understand how these bacterial mats, or bacteria that all fit together in a flat plane, that can grow on things, especially with water in them on the ground, can happen in space as well. We want to understand how that works because we'd like to protect the hardware and ourselves from this bacteria that grows. So it turns out, though, that cells grow differently in space because there's no gravity, and there's also radiation hitting them. And that's actually important for understanding how bacteria grow on the ground as well. So we've been discovering a lot of things because of this unique environment, high radiation, and unable to feel the effects of gravity. We've been able to learn quite a bit about how bacteria live and grow.
Hello, my name is Nadir Williams, and my question is, what projects are you currently working on while aboard the International Space Station?
Hi, Nadir. It's kind of hard to choose what to tell you about. I just last week was working on this combustion chamber. It's actually a big chamber that's protected from us, and we're protected from it, but that's where we can start fires, small fires, with a lot of cameras and sensors to totally understand how a fire forms in zero-G. And that's pretty important for understanding how fires propagate on the ground as well. And this is the only place we can remove the effects of gravity. I was involved in a skin study trying to figure out how skin ages. It seems like with all the radiation up here that we age maybe, and our skin ages probably faster than it does on the ground. So I had skin cells that I was working with and giving them food and letting them grow, and scientists on the ground are going to study those as well. I've done a lot of ultrasound experiments up here, and some of my favorite are the capillary flow experiments that we've done in the past to understand how fluid moves with under capillary force control. And that has a wide implications on space engines and even medical devices on Earth. But there's experiments going on all the time.
Hi, my name is King Demetrius, and my question for you today is, how do you work out in space with zero gravity?
Well, it's really important for us to stay in shape, keep our bones and muscles strong, because they would waste away since we don't feel the pressure of gravity. We have three main devices: a stationary bike. It looks like a stationary bike, except it doesn't have a seat because there's nothing to sit on. We have a treadmill. It's on the wall, actually, and that treadmill allows us to practice walking and continue to run and stay in shape that way. We have bungees that hold us down tight. Well, one of the best machines is our weightlifting machine, and that one uses vacuum pistons to push against us, kind of like if you were trying to open up a clamshell, pushing us together from both sides, and we have to hold it up. And we can get up to 600 pounds of pressure on that, so we can keep our spine and our legs and our core muscles strong.
Hi, my name is Jeffrey, and my question is, how do you get back to Earth?
Hi, Jeffrey. Just to my right here and on the side is a spaceship. It's a SpaceX Dragon capsule. That is how I'm going to get back to Earth. We're going so fast right now with a lot of energy, 17,500 miles an hour, and that spacecraft has an engine in it that will slow us down so Earth's gravity can pick us up and let us fall back down through the atmosphere. And then the atmosphere itself and the friction from that, because we hit it so fast, is going to slow us down the rest of the way until the parachutes can open and we'll land in the ocean.
Hi, my name is Jaden, and my question is, how do you maintain your mental health being away from your family?
That's a great question. We have lots of things here that are just wonderful. I can make a phone call to just about anyone that I want if I know their phone number. And so I talk to my wife and my daughter most every day. And I get a chance to have a video conference, much like we're having right now, with them once a week. And we have email as well, so we can stay in contact. And that's really important, so that even though I'm away, I can keep up with the news at home, the news of the family. And it really helps us to feel more connected to the Earth. I've never felt lonely up here because of all these things that we have. I might feel alone, but never lonely.
Hi, my name is Jessica. My question is, how do you get accepted into the astronaut program?
Well, you can get accepted probably by starting right now at the age that you are, by studying hard, taking care of your body, taking care of yourself, being involved in some sport, and joining clubs, being a part of a group of people, particularly in a leadership role where you have to make decisions, particularly decisions that have consequences. All those things are not easy to do. So it takes years and years and even decades to learn how to do them. When you get of the age and once you've had a degree, you have to have graduated from college, then you can apply for the astronaut office. It's a government form you fill out. But go ahead and apply. I think NASA would love to hear from you. And there's a several-stage process after that. They do a physical, make sure you're healthy, and then you might have a chance to join the astronaut office.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communications.
You know, we're excited to see what kind of data that we collect from this first project. Any sort of data we get is going to be brand new information for us and for...
Three, 2, 1, and 0. And a liftoff of the Falcon 9 rocket and the Dragon spacecraft, packed with science and supplies for the International Space Station, humanity's home in low Earth orbit.
So we were originally scheduled to be on SpaceX 14, but about a week before launch, our project got canceled from that launch because of some issues with the controlled environment.
Science in space can be complex, and no matter how meticulously things are planned and executed, sometimes those complexities get in the way of launching on time. When equipment used to house the experiment didn't look perfect for a final pre-flight test, there was no choice but to push it to a later flight to ensure mission success.
As a first-time investigator, that was, it wasn't devastating. It was just sad that we weren't going to be able to launch because up to that point, it had taken us about 2 years to get there. Ultimately, it gave us about 6 months more time to reevaluate that controlled system and do some more groundwork to prepare for the launch in December of 2018 on SpaceX 16.
After the setback of being moved to a later launch, our team of scientists now has only days left before their experiment will be loaded into a SpaceX Dragon capsule that will carry it to the International Space Station. Elaine and Parastu, the co-founders of a biomedical startup, are at NASA's Kennedy Space Center, readying their research for microgravity.
Since this is our first project that's launching to station, this is also our first time working at the Kennedy Space Center. So it's been an exciting moment to, not just see the visitor center, go look at the touristy things, but also get past the security gate and into the actual laboratories.
While some experiments are loaded into Dragon in the weeks leading up to launch, others have more time-sensitive components. These require precise preparation and loading in the days before liftoff. For those scientists, laboratories at the Kennedy Space Center that are a part of the Space Station Processing Facility, or SSPF, become a home away from home. Here, they can carry out the critical last steps of preparing their experiments for delivery to the space station.
So we got here on a Thursday, and it's currently Sunday. Put in a big day yesterday filling up these wells with gel solution and getting ready for handover at 7:30 a.m. on Monday, ahead of launch on Tuesday afternoon.
Once you arrive here, you kind of get into this other time. It's this weird little time bubble where everything is now L-based, and L being launch, and it's L minus 72, L minus 48, L minus 24, and it's just building up to the actual launch time.
With those precious remaining hours, the team is prepping their microplates for microgravity. Microplates are also used in labs on Earth, but these were specially designed to be self-contained.
My role on the project was to design the actual microplate themselves. The challenge on orbit, though, is that generally fluid experiments have to be conducted in the glove box, and the glove box is very time limited. It's very crew intensive. So we've designed this self-contained microplate that can be operated outside of the glove box. It has all of the containment to keep the fluids inside.
So we have loaded these wells with hydrogels that they were carrying drugs, and we want to actually look at the effect of microgravity and how the release of the drug is affected when we send it to the space station. So the concern that we have is that if we have bubbles that are in the wells, it may be difficult for the plate reader to be able to read the amount correctly. So we are being very careful with how we are loading the waters.
So what's left to do today, once Parastu here finishes filling the microplates, I'm going to take over and seal them up completely. Once that's done, we'll add all of the labels onto the microplates and put them in a self-contained box that is what they'll actually travel to the space station on.
3 years in the making just to get here.
Once we do that, we'll turn it over to Cold Stow. Cold Stow will take it from there, and the next time we'll see them, we'll be on orbit, and the crew's opening them up.
Cold Stow, short for cold stowage, is the team responsible for making sure that the research stays at the right temperature on its journey from the lab on Earth to the lab in space. This handoff is one of the last steps before being loaded onto the rocket. The cold stowage team will take Elaine and Parastu's experiment and keep it safe and sound before it's loaded for launch.
Does it feel like a relief?
Well, it'll feel like a relief when we actually see it take off. And then it'll be finally...
It's a huge step though.
Yeah.
It's done. It's out of our hands at this point.
Yeah. It'll be officially out of our hands when it leaves the Earth's surface. So that'll be the moment that we're finally done. Until we get data, and then we get to process it.
That's just the beginning, actually.
So what'll happen now is, now that we've handed them over to NASA, NASA will deliver, they're on their way right now out to Dragon to be loaded. And the launch hopefully will happen tomorrow at 1338. I've been involved since the very beginning, which is approximately about 3 years ago. It's been a long road, but like everything, it's a lot of work. It's worth it. And we're excited to help Tim Panagin get some data for this project.
Overall, we're going to get a lot of data from just this one project and those 2 experiments that are going to inform a lot of different things for us. All right.
It's a little windy out here today. It's a beautiful day. It's a little windy. It's got me concerned. My launch intuition is tingling a bit. It's always an awesome and amazing and special thing to see. It's the launch day. It's a little windy out here today. It's a beautiful day. It's a little windy. It's got me concerned. My launch intuition is tingling a bit. I grew up here in Florida. I came to this very spot out here in the Causeway as a kid. My dad would take us to launches all the time. So personally, it's like the kid in me comes out when I come here. It's really cool. I've been on both sides of it. I've been a researcher, and then I've been now helping researchers. And I got to say, it's nervous on both sides. You have a lot of worry, I guess, as a scientist. You have a lot of work involved. As a payload provider, you hope you've checked all the boxes and you've done all that you can do to make everything work for the researcher so that they get good data. It's not easy to put even the most simplest payloads on the space station, but it's worth it. It's worth all the work. I think some of the biggest discoveries we've made and are going to find are up on the space station. It's incredibly important.
Well, we've been really nervous all the way up until right this moment. Nervous that our dreams aren't actually going to happen. But now that the larger countdown is happening and the rocket's all fueled up and everything looks like it's going to happen on time, it's getting really exciting. The last 15-minute window before it takes off. Thanks to Cases for funding this, thanks to NanoRacks for helping us coordinate and making the hardware and coordinating all the data collection too. And thank you for the astronauts who are going to be working on this project on station. So a lot of people worked on this. It's not just the 2 of us. It's been a lot of people. So we really appreciate all their support.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. And liftoff.
As Falcon 9 and Cargo Dragon take flight, bound for the International Space Station with fresh supplies and research, helping to maintain our human presence in space as the station celebrates its 20th anniversary.
It'd be incredible just to watch it no matter what, but knowing that we have a personal investment in it makes a big difference.
Yeah, so it's just knowing that something that we've been working on is on it, and then watching the whole experience makes it just different. It really, I can't find the right words to explain it. Really,
definitely feel like the work leading up to it was worthwhile.
Yeah, absolutely. And watching it with your best friend.
Yeah.
And like someone that you've been working with for such a long time, and it's just, I think it couldn't get better. That's what I can say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't want to do it with anyone else.
Yeah, that is the exact same sentiment that I have too. So it was really special that we could both be here.
Yeah.
Watch it together.
Our scientist experiment is officially on its way to the International Space Station. The SpaceX Dragon capsule that gives the research its ride to low Earth orbit now must make the last leg of its journey to the hands of the astronauts in microgravity.
What's neat for us is we've got cargo vehicles coming and going to the ISS all the time. It is really like a busy parking lot. Vehicles come in, they stay for a few months, we do a whole bunch of science, and then they leave again. And before you know it, the next one's coming up. Now, what's important to remember is that these vehicles cannot dock themselves to the space station. We have to bring them into the space station utilizing robotics. And what I like to tell people is performing robotics, going out and capturing that vehicle is like a really difficult video game. And so we practice over and over and over again using computer simulations on how to actually capture that cargo vehicle to bring it into station. Once that cargo vehicle docks to station, we do a series of pressure checks and equalize that pressure with the International Space Station, and finally we get to open the hatch. Very quickly the crew starts to move because we've got some experiments that are actually kept at certain temperatures, and we have to transfer them quickly out and keep them at the same temperature there on board the space station.
Elaine and Peristu's research is one of the experiments that requires quick unloading. Stored at a constant temperature to ensure the hydrogels stay intact, it's one of the first items that astronauts must remove from Dragon. Then, with the experiment finally aboard the space station, it's time to conduct science in microgravity.
This was fantastic for me. This is what I do. This means a lot to me as a clinician. And so it was really neat to be able to perform that sort of science on station.
Space Station 1002 is loaded.
Choose your lettuce leaf.
Cheers.
Cheers. We get false over? Oh, that's pretty good.
Wow.
It's a salad. It's a salad. JC, that looks delicious.
Serena, that sounds great.
Well, when you haven't had a salad in 6 months, it's delicious.
Space Station on 2 for Nanorax.
With you on 2 for Nanorax.
Right, how's your view? Do you want anything different?
View looks great.
No, the view looks great. Thank you.
Now that the experiment is aboard the space station, it's time for the astronauts to get to work. Elaine and Peristu are back in Virginia, and the Nanorax team is back in Texas, where they will perform a ground control version of the experiment being conducted by the crew in space.
The crew members are using the Nanorax plate reader to read the plates. They're analyzing what's in the plate and the migration of fluids between the two chambers that are on the plates. And so we have our ground samples here. These are identical to the ones that are on the space station. And what we're going to do is, as the crew members insert the plates into the plate reader on the space station, we're also going to insert the plates onto the ground unit we have behind me. And that's just to confirm that what we're seeing, any effects that we do end up seeing, is effective the space environment compared to the ground unit. In summary, what the plate reader does is, it's called, the big fancy word is a spectrophotometer. And it's got a big lamp in it that shines white light, and then it's got a prism or a grating. and the white light shines on the grating, and then it moves to orientate to kind of separate the light into a wavelength, and you get to select which wavelength you want to shine through your samples. We have 6 plates. Each plate takes about 4 minutes, so it's about 30 minutes each, and every time in between we'll be listening for the crew member to say that they inserted the plate. Then we'll hit the command here. Once the run is done, the crew member will come over and take the plate out, put the new plate in, and it'll repeat for 5 more times.
So station 03, plate 1003 is in the tray.
Yeah, it's reading the plate. It's got a little, the plate sits in there, moves the plate this way, and then the read head moves this way. And a little here, that's kind of the lamp that's in there that turns the lamp on. Sounds like bad techno music.
My crewmate actually was the first one to start this experiment, and I took over for him and said, hey, what experiment is this? What are we doing? And he looks at me and he says, I'm not sure. So we called down to the ground to mission control.
And I know that part of this is we're looking at a gel that can release antibiotics, kind of slow release to a wound site. But I don't know what happened to that plate in the NanoRax reader this morning and then kind of what's going on this afternoon.
What we're looking for is how the drug migrates through the gel over time, which is why we're scanning the plates 2 times a day for this 2-week run.
I like that answer. That's very cool. Thank you for finding that out.
No problem.
So this is 15 days. It's twice a day, and they're typically in the middle of the night, which is the morning for the crew on space station, and then usually sometime in the late morning, early afternoon here. But Kyle's been running the show. He's been getting up every 6 hours, 8 hours, 7 hours to do this. It's kind of fun in a way. I get to play astronaut on the ground, so that's always fun.
After 15 days of running the experiment, the researchers have a lot of valuable data about how hydrogels behave in microgravity. To learn even more, the samples will come back to Earth for further analysis. For the last leg of their journey, the samples will return to Earth in the same Dragon capsule that gave them a ride to microgravity. After Dragon splashes down in the Pacific Ocean, it's taken to the port of Long Beach, where NASA will be ready to retrieve the precious cargo.
Splashdown for Dragon was on Sunday, I believe. And so NASA has a group called Cold Stowage and Cargo Manifest, and they go out and pick up the payloads from Dragon. And then they distribute it to people at LA or whoever needs them there, and then they bring them also here to Johnson Space Center. And so now I'm out front at the Cold Stow office, and I just picked up Module 74, which is our Tympanogen project. And they hand it to me, and I put it in my cooler, and then I drive it over to our office, where it's going to sit until we fly up to the Tympanogen office in Richmond, Virginia, to do the final phase of the experiment, which is removing the samples out of the reactor microplates. We're really proud to take part in this really interesting experiment.
When we first got our gels back, it was already exciting because space never loses its cool, and so we had these places where, oh my god, these are what the astronauts touched. And so we opened up and they've been to space and back, and now they're in our lab.
Hey, I'm Jory. At NASA, we pay tribute to the women in STEM who continue to lead the way for change in our society and culture. This March, we shine a spotlight, just a few, in honor of Women's History Month. Did you know human computers were a huge part of NASA's history? During her 34 years at NASA, Annie Beasley paved the way for women's rights by helping supervisors address issues such as gender, race, and age discrimination.
And on the other side of the country, Helen Ling hired women computers who wanted to be engineers, but who didn't have the necessary education.
Over the years, more women were trained to be NASA astronauts.
While she never went to space, Dr. Patricia Cowings became the first American woman scientist to be trained as a payload specialist, and even developed a method to train astronauts on how to combat motion sickness during spaceflight.
Did you know? A NASA engineer was inspired by a drinking straw to create a new way to clean up toxic waste. Well, it's true.
NASA environmental engineer Jackie Quinn was hit by inspiration in the cafeteria. when she came up with an invention to clean up contaminated water and soil. All thanks to a drinking straw.
Houston, do you copy?
In 2001, Ginger Carrot became the first non-astronaut capsule communicator, aka the person who relays information from mission control to astronauts in space. 4 years later, Ginger became NASA's first Hispanic female flight director.
From politics to science, pioneers to engineers, women are making history every day. And that is worth celebrating.
My younger son, we actually came into this room years ago, and he was probably 4, and I put on my helmet on him and put my harness, and it's dragging on the floor, and he looks at me and goes, "Look, Daddy, I'm a test pilot."
Put this side in first.
I'm Nils Larson. I'm the chief test pilot here at NASA Armstrong. It really came when I was probably a junior in high school, maybe a sophomore, and one of my teachers handed me a book, and the book was The Right Stuff. I knew I kind of wanted to be an engineer or a scientist, and I read that and I went, wow, this would be cool. You could be both an engineer / scientist, and you could be a pilot. Best of both worlds, how cool would this be?
Roll 3, 2. Copy, Mark.
The test pilot answer is my favorite, is whatever I'm flying today. So I just got out of the F-18, so that's my favorite right now.
Well, the role of the test pilot is to pull it all together in the air. Our mission here, our objectives are testing science and technology through flight, in flight.
Let's see, flight objectives, basically the biggest thing is to try and get this instrumentation worked out and, be able to compare it to the airplane and to what's being recorded on my chest. Mission security, mission rules, go, no go. We talked about the 40,000 foot, probably the biggest one. So we'll go to 39,999 feet. Let's see.
Keep me on my toes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. You got your helmet? Okay, I'll give you the rundown real quick and then we can go out there and do what we gotta do.
Well, what we do is our initial concern is to give the pilot a safe and reliable aircraft for his mission. Once we've achieved that, then our next concern becomes the science and the research folks that are going to be associated with the airplane. So if they've attached an experiment or they're looking for specific data, we work with them to make sure that their equipment is working the way it should be and that it gets them the data that they're looking for.
For us here, we work a lot more with the project. We're doing, sometimes we call it weird things with airplanes. So rarely are we going to point A to point B, or if we are going point A to point B, we're going up and down and up and down and up and down the whole time when we're going there. And our job is to try and get the people the data.
Fan on the speed brake. See how its effect on pitch. That was a good one.
You look and, you still, even though you're sitting in the same desk, Neil Armstrong worked here. We named the place after him. My desk used to be right where he sat. Joe Walker, I sit where his desk used to be. That's where I sit now. And you still don't feel like you're worthy to be sitting where they were.
Air Pro 2.
I'll say one thing. These pilots are about the best test pilots probably in the world. They're very busy. They're either flying all across the world in sims, meetings, tech briefs. They make things happen at NASA and for the United States and the world. They're the first people flying maybe a wing that was modified or some modification to an aircraft.
We're not done with flight. There's a lot of research yet to be done in flight. There's a lot of gains yet to be accomplished in flight. And to get our job done, we need test pilots like Nils Larson, like the people he works with and trains.
Still a little bit of side-to-side motion on the stick, a little bit of pumping forward.
It's early morning and I'm watching the sunrise over the lake bed, and it's a beautiful sunrise, and it suddenly occurs to me, oh my God, I made it. I'm doing what it was that I decided when I was 16 that I wanted to go do. I always tell people that it's worth it. because it wasn't like I was just nosing the book, you know, for 17 years. I had a lot of fun in those 17 years getting up to that flight. And then I've had a lot more flights like that since. So, you know, it's totally been worth it.
It's extremely exciting. In my lectures, there are always young people in the audience, and they always want to know when they're bringing it back, you know. And I always say, I don't think ever. I think NASA, you know, they realizes that they have two marks, so to speak, but somehow they can be made to coexist. We had to analyze what had been done by NASA in the past. Finally, we realized that we had to have a unifier, something that was very strong to hold it all together. So over the process of working on it, over the first month, I think we got simpler and simpler with our solutions so that it would work miles away on a T-38 or a rocket or a space shuttle. We were trying to embody in the logo innovation. You know, the organization still had aeronautics as well as space, and so that you see a kind of nose cone design inside of the A's and propulsion, kind of upward thrust. Great simplicity, but still movement.
Roger, roll, Discovery.
The term worm came out of Florida in a newspaper down there, and it was meant to be derogatory, and I personally thought it was very derogatory. And eventually, over the years, the worm became a term of endearment, but it wasn't meant that at all in the beginning. When they started producing apparel a couple of years ago, they found out how young people in particular really like this program, and so they've allowed it to kind of come back to life on its own. It's validation, I think, of the sort of timeless approach that we brought to this. Space is about the future, and if we can still hang in there, and if it still represents that, then it's quite a victory, I think. You know, aesthetics aside, the goal was to do that, to hold up for decades, and apparently it's still, it's got better legs today than it did then.
The Cold Atom Laboratory is in many ways the coolest thing and the coldest thing we've ever done on the International Space Station. It is allowing us to investigate cold quantum gases and make breakthroughs in areas of physics that up until now have been unavailable to us.
NASA built the International Space Station to do the kind of research that we're doing in the Cold Atom Lab. This is the first time we're able to study this fifth state of matter in space.
Bose-Einstein condensation is an amazing feat of engineering in itself, but this type of physics is difficult to do in ground-based experiments. And so doing this in microgravity is going to allow us to really see what's going on. So you have something cool, how do you make it cooler? You put it in space.
Our ability to study cold atoms is really going to advance our knowledge in areas that will help us in quantum computing, quantum communications, and learn even more about gravity and how it interacts in our universe.
Today we're going to talk about nutrition and the role it plays to keep astronauts healthy on the International Space Station. Hi, I'm NASA astronaut Tracy Dyson. Welcome to Station Life.
Houston on 2 for velocity confirmation. Assembly steps 4, 5, and 4, 6. We're moving on to step 5.
Go right now for that
activity. Copy. Thank you.
Okay, Tracy, we copy, and that's good information. We'll pass it along.
Good nutrition is a part of good health, whether you're on Earth or off. Today's show will focus on nutrition research aboard the International Space Station. That's one small bite for man, one giant leaf for mankind. Astronauts Scott Kelly, Kjell Lundgren, and Kimya Yui of Japan recently sampled the fruits of their labor after growing and harvesting a crop of outrageous red romaine lettuce from the Veggie Plant Growth Facility. This was the first crop of vegetables grown in space, specifically for the purpose of providing fresh vegetables for the astronauts. Later this month, the crew will harvest zinnia flowers, a precursor for the next crop. We're going to try tomatoes.
the bag listed in the location, but I did find it in the same block, but in 1/2 CTB 1204. And we'll check on that feedback.
You know, living in space changes our bodies in a number of ways. We lose bone mineral density, our muscles atrophy, our cardiovascular system gets weaker, and we experience immune system dysfunction. One of the ways of understanding the changes in our bodies during long-duration spaceflight is to study our nutritional status at specific time points during our mission. Samples that we collect while we're in space provide scientists with information on bone metabolism, oxidative damage, body chemistry, and hormonal changes. These insights give scientists a more complete picture about what's happening in our bodies. That increased understanding of the role of nutrition in adaptation to spaceflight has a broader application on Earth. One example is understanding the relationship of nutrition to bone loss. This is potentially valuable for people suffering from osteoporosis right here on Earth.
The bones in our bodies are alive, growing, and changing all the time. Our bones are composed of different layers. The outer surface of bone is called cortical bone. This is the smooth, hard part of the bone that we can see when we look at a skeleton. Inside the cortical bone is the trabecular bone. This type of bone looks like a sponge and helps to protect the bone marrow. The constant process of bones growing and changing is known as bone remodeling. This process is carried out by specific cells in our bones. Cells called osteoclasts have the role of breaking down our bone and removing any parts that need replacing. At the same time, cells called osteoblasts have the job of making new bone and helping to repair any parts of the bone that have been damaged. On Earth, in healthy individuals, this process is normally balanced so that the same amount of bone is made and broken down. In space, astronauts are exposed to lower levels of gravity than on Earth. This means that they have less mechanical stress put on their bones as they move around. Scientists believe that the bones naturally try to adapt to this new environment by increasing the rate that the bone is broken down by the osteoclasts. Meanwhile, bone formation continues to occur at the same rate as it does on Earth. The result is an imbalance in bone remodeling, which leads to an overall decrease in bone mineral density. While in space, astronauts can manage with lower bone density, but when they return, their bones are less able to cope with Earth's gravity. This increases the risk of fracture and injury. Scientists use many different tests to measure the density of the astronauts' bones. Results show that the astronauts, while in space, lose bone in a similar pattern to people on Earth who suffer from osteoporosis, but the astronauts lose it at a much faster rate. Scientists have found that exercise, when combined with good nutrition and increased vitamin D intake, is able to preserve some of the bone that was previously being lost. Since 2008, astronauts have been able to use a new exercise machine called the Advanced Resistive Exercise Device, or ARED. It is thought that this increase in force triggers the formation of new bone, bringing more balance to the bone remodeling process and allowing the bone density to stay at roughly the same level as it was before the spaceflight. It is a significant achievement to be able to maintain bone density in space, but more experiments need to be carried out to see whether the new bone which is formed in space has the same structure and strength as new bone which is formed on Earth. Understanding bone loss associated with microgravity may lead to better preventive care or therapeutic treatments for people on Earth suffering bone loss as a result of bone diseases like osteopenia and osteoporosis, or for patients on prolonged bed rest.
One of the things I love about the field of nutrition, one of the things that really drew me into the field of nutrition as a graduate student, was the fact that nutrition really is a cross-cutting science, and the fact that we get to look at all the systems and nutrition in and of itself. So doing bone studies and muscle studies and vision studies and cardiovascular studies really helps to branch out and to work with other groups and see the integration within the human being, and not just focused on a specific enzyme in a specific tissue in a petri dish in a lab somewhere in a basement. One of the great things about nutrition research on Space Station is that Space Station is a great platform and that it allows us to study very healthy individuals in a very strange environment, in a very unique environment that the body is trying to adapt to. And what that does, that allows us to understand how the body responds to these changes. And in many ways that reflects disease patterns or altered physiology, if you will, on Earth. So bone is a great example where when an astronaut is put into spaceflight, the body starts to break down bone because the body realizes it doesn't need the same skeleton in weightlessness as it did on Earth. And by looking at that adaptation and how to counteract that adaptation, that tells us about how the body responds to these different changes. So we see roughly the same change in bone in about 6 months on a space station mission as you would see in a much longer period, 4 or 5 years. So it's almost like time-lapse photography where we can see a much faster glimpse of what's going on. We can study countermeasures much more quickly. And again, the implications of those studies for people studying those same phenomena on Earth really helps to leapfrog some of the technology ahead. Hi, my name is Scott Smith. I'm the lead for the Nutritional Biochemistry Lab at the Johnson Space Center, and we're studying nutrition off the Earth for the Earth.
In space and on Earth, our bodies require proper nutrition. Defining the nutrient requirements for spaceflight and ensuring provision and intake of those nutrients are primary issues for astronaut health and mission success. After all, you are what you eat. One challenge is providing appetizing food for astronauts that doesn't require refrigeration and has a long shelf life. While the food is generally much better than you might imagine, and we have come a long way since the early days of spaceflight, we do have limited access to fresh foods. In our next segment, we'll go inside NASA's Space Food Systems Laboratory, as seen in the National Geographic Space Station Live program.
Eating in space is its own kind of fun. But keeping astronauts fit and healthy is a serious business. Michelle Clinch is responsible for what they eat.
We're making spaghetti with meat sauce.
Space meals begin just like ours do, with a trip to the supermarket.
Thank you.
But the similarities stop there. Spaghetti and meat sauce is just one of the 250 things on the space station menu. Each portion is meticulously calibrated.
We have a database where we maintain the nutritional content of all our products, calories, fat, protein, carbohydrate, things like that.
But the most important calculation is what things weigh. That's because it costs $10,000 for every pound blasted off to the astronauts. So NASA adopted a reduction technique, also used by the military.
Freeze drying removes a high percentage of the moisture, so typically when we freeze dry our products, we take them down to about 3%.
Each portion now weighs just 1 ounce. Cost to transport, $660. 1,300 miles away, and the orbital Cygnus resupply module is being loaded with the freeze-dried food. And it's time for a few last-minute food luxuries.
These are the tortillas. They're very popular on orbit.
After a daily routine of freeze-dried meals, a fresh piece of fruit is a welcome relief, well worth its weight in gold.
As you can see, we're only sending 3 apples, so you may think that's unfair because we have 6 people on orbit. They may have to share.
This very precious cargo is one of the last things to be loaded onto the rocket.
It's on its way.
3, 2, 1.
Less than a kilometer away from us now.
2 days later, Cygnus docks with the space station.
We're getting ready to berth the Cygnus 1 vehicle. All right. Looks really good. Perfect. Perfect. All right. Bonus food.
Including some surprise treats from their families.
Wow. Oh, look at that. Tortilla. The real tortillas. Look at that. Real tortillas. Pours
Oh,
it.
wow.
Oh my goodness gracious. The greatest hot dog relish in the history of man. Oh my gosh, my wife didn't tell me about this.
Hello, and welcome to Node 1. In the boxes you see here, we keep our food on the International Space Station, and specifically the food that we are currently eating. And in our logistics module, Leonardo, where I was just now, we keep our supplies. We keep them in soft containers like this one, which we call bobs. And this one is a very special bob for me because it contains my bonus food, the food that I chose myself based on my preference and my taste. This one, for example, is one of my absolute favorites. It's quinoa salad with mackerel. Mackerel is a great source of healthy proteins, but also of healthy fats. Those fats that our body absolutely needs to stay healthy and in good shape. On board we have different kinds of fish, which are great sources of healthy fat. For example, thanks to our Russian colleagues, we have sturgeon. In my bonus food, I also took sources of healthy fats that I can eat for a snack. I love avocado, for example, so I took it in form of guacamole that I can spread on my bread. Or I also love dry fruit, so I have almonds and nuts. And I didn't forget to take olive oil. And I can tell you, our rehydrated veggies not only taste a lot better with olive oil, but they're also a lot healthier. So I hope you will put the right rocket fuel into your body, starting with the right types of fat. And remember, eating healthy is not rocket science.
You know, I don't know the reason behind it, but your taste buds change when you get to space. So the things that you like on Earth and you just can't get enough of, you've got enough of when you get to space. So there's something about your taste buds. Don't know what it is. However, aromas, you don't get enough of it, partly because of the way things are packaged. And coffee, for instance, has this smell that you kind of consume while you're eating the food, but it's in a package that has a straw and you can't smell anything. So it still didn't stop me from drinking it, but you just couldn't smell it. And same with all the other foods. They come in a little package, and so you don't really smell it very well. And you miss that. When you come back to Earth, you find out just how important smell is when you're eating food. So, how does the space station smell? You know, this is a good question because in general, the space station smells like nothing. It's clean, except if you're in Node 3 and you're working out on the AHORA machine and all of a sudden you smell something that you think is coming from the WHC, but it's actually, which is our space potty, but it's actually our Russian colleagues back in the service module open up a can of beef, and it gets into the air circulation system, and it makes its first stop in Node 3. And so at first you're like, oh, what is that? And you're like, oh wait, it's lunchtime. And then it's a much better smell into your brain. You know, mealtime in space can be a lot of fun. It's especially dinner time. At the end of this long day where 6 people, 6 little pink bodies in space, working all day long, and we're rarely together working unless it's something very unique. We're all off doing our own thing. And to come together at the end of the day when you know that you've signed off with mission control and you're in that evening period of time, that you can sit around a table with your crewmates and share food. And when you're an international crew and you have food from your Russian Russian crewmates, your Japanese roommates, well, that's what we are, crewmates. When you have everybody coming together at the table to share their food, that's one of the best parts about eating in space.
So I just finished eating and I have to enter in what I ate because the ground folks like to keep track of it, keep track of our calories, how much salt we're getting, how much protein, things like that. They track us closely on everything. When we lift weights, we have to keep track of how much weight we lift, how many reps we do. When we run on the treadmill or when computers are recording our heart rate, when we turn on lights, when we turn on the toilets. I learned on my first mission there are no secrets in space. We got video cameras in just about all the modules. So it's basically like being in a big fishbowl. The ground knows everything about us up here, which is not that big a deal, but it's something to keep in mind, and you need a little privacy.
I'm just getting my safety cutter on the other side of my IDA back here.
Copy, Terry.
A lot easier without the pool stanchion.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's just like in the pool instead of that, with the exception of that big blue planet down there.
Exactly.
As the International Space Station flies 257 statute miles over the coast of Chile, Terry Virts in the initial moments of his first spacewalk.
Welcome back, and thanks for watching this episode of Station Life. As you can see, space station nutrition research is vital towards improving the quality of human health and well-being in space and here on Earth. NASA is constantly searching for ways to benefit humanity as together we take the next steps towards exploring our universe, searching for the answers that matter to us the most. Thank you for joining us on Station Life and our behind-the-scenes look at nutrition research aboard the International Space Station. Be sure to stay in touch and follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest research news. And don't forget to download our fabulous app on your mobile device. Until next time, stay with us, off the Earth, for the Earth. I think it's time to eat.
Upgrade work continues outside the space station. An updated strategy for landing Artemis astronauts on the moon and unsealing pieces of the past. A few of the stories to tell you about this week at NASA. On March 23rd, the crew on board the International Space Station conducted the second spacewalk this month to continue upgrades to the orbiting laboratory. During the outing, NASA astronaut Rasha Shari and European Space Agency astronaut Matthias Maurer worked to install new thermal system and electronics components on the station's U.S. segment. They also worked to install a power and data cable on the Columbus module's Bartolomeo science platform, replace an external camera on the station's truss, and conduct other upgrades to station hardware. Also on March 23rd, we announced plans to create additional opportunities for commercial companies to develop an astronaut moon lander that can transport humans between our lunar orbiting space station known as Gateway and the lunar surface for missions beyond Artemis 3, which will be the first mission to land astronauts on the moon in more than 50 years. The announcement is part of a strategy by the agency to pursue two parallel paths for continuing lunar lander development and demonstration, one that calls for additional work under an existing contract with commercial partner SpaceX, and another open to all other U.S. companies. This effort is meant to maximize NASA's support for competition and provides redundancy in services to help ensure NASA's ability to transport astronauts to the lunar surface. One of the last unopened Apollo-era lunar samples collected 50 years ago during Apollo 17 has been opened at our Johnson Space Center in Houston. Sample 73001 had been kept vacuum-sealed and in pristine condition in anticipation of the day that scientists equipped with advanced technology could examine it. The Apollo Next Generation Sample Analysis Program is studying the sample and others like it as we prepare to send astronauts back to the moon for more samples on upcoming Artemis missions. On March 21st, the number of confirmed exoplanets or planets outside of our solar system ticked past the 5,000 mark. The milestone was reached when the latest batch of 65 exoplanets was added to the NASA Exoplanet Archive. This stream of exoplanet discoveries that began 30 years ago includes contributions from NASA's TESS, Kepler, and Spitzer space telescopes, with more discoveries possible in the future from our James Webb and Nancy Grace Roman space telescopes. On March 22nd, the newest U.S.-European sea level satellite named Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich became the official reference satellite for global sea level measurements. This means that sea surface height data collected by other satellites will be compared to the information produced by Sentinel-6 Michael Freilich to ensure accuracy. The satellite, which is named after NASA's former Earth Science Division Director, the late Dr. Michael Freilich, was launched in November 2020. That's what's up this week at NASA. For more on these and other stories, follow us on the web at nasa.gov/twan.
The Cold Atom Laboratory is in many ways the coolest thing and the coldest thing we've ever done on the International Space Station. It is allowing us to investigate cold quantum gases and make breakthroughs in areas of physics that up until now have been unavailable to us.
NASA built the International Space Station to do the kind of research that we're doing in the Cold Atom Lab. This is the first time we're able to study this fifth state of matter in space.
Bose-Einstein condensation is an amazing feat of engineering in itself, but this type of physics is difficult to do in ground-based experiments. And so doing this in microgravity is going to allow us to really see what's going on. So you have something cool, how do you make it cooler? You put it in space.
Our ability to study cold atoms is really going to advance our knowledge in areas that will help us in quantum computing, quantum communications, and learn even more about gravity and how it interacts in our universe.
Being an educator today is not easy. We here at Heights Elementary School are not here simply to educate our students in the academic realm. It's so important for our students to be lifelong learners, and we have to think about ways that we motivate them to do so.
There are so many distractions that we have to compete with.
iPads, Xbox, video games,
The internet.
Far too many channels of cable television.
What we need is something that kids will be highly motivated about, something to keep them physically fit as well as making nutritionally sound choices.
What we needed was a new tool to help these kids think about diet and exercise in order to make the healthy choices they need to.
I knew what that tool was. It was something that inspired me as a kid and continues to inspire me today. The space program.
The importance of an astronaut's physical exercise and proper diet cannot be understated, not just for the fitness of the astronaut, but also to ensure that they stay mentally focused and productive during their stay on the International Space Station and for future missions, whether it be to asteroids, the moon, or Mars.
In response to the rising childhood obesity rate, NASA has developed a series of activities based on astronaut training, and we call that Train Like an Astronaut.
Examples of the Train Like an Astronaut activities include things that we do exactly as we do on the ISS: cycling, resistance training, and cardiovascular. And then onto dexterity, putting puzzles together, making healthy food choices, and working as a team. All activities as they truly do on the ISS.
Train Like an Astronaut activities are flexible enough to be used in conjunction with other programs like NFL Play 60. What makes this program unique is that we're using the human challenges of space flight to inspire as well as motivate our children to make healthy choices throughout their life.
We're currently in 24 countries with over 24,000 participants and growing every year.
This has expanded to such an incredible opportunity for both myself and for educators around the world to make such an impact on the lives of children, both with fitness as well as nutrition.
It was excitement for the whole thing that the students, they weren't just doing exercises anymore. They were training like an astronaut.
The true success of this program is the educators. An example of a teacher that has worked and motivated his children is an outstanding educator by the name of Tim Vigorito. This gentleman excited them and inspired them in ways that we never could do it. And with that, he's helping us grow the 21st century leadership that we so desperately need.
Mr. Vigorito is extremely passionate about the Train Like an Astronaut program.
I think he himself would like to be an astronaut.
He comes to life when he's teaching the kids and talking about the program. The kids feel that enthusiasm.
We're just so fortunate to have him. Oh, it's truly the case.
They say your astronaut training doesn't begin when NASA hires you.
Cool.
It begins when you're young, by learning about space and the world around us, and by making healthy choices in life. Today, I'd like to recognize an outstanding physical education teacher, Tim Vigorito, for being a champion for the Train Like an Astronaut program and influencing thousands of students to date.
Wow.
It is educators like you that truly make a difference in this world, and who will inspire the next generation to propel humankind on future missions to Mars and beyond.
This is too much. For me, it's become a way of life, and I'm just so thankful to everyone for what it's done for me. I just want to share that with my students. Maybe it'll inspire them to reach a little deeper or to go a little further or maybe to try a little harder, whatever it is in life.
The International Space Station is the most fantastic vehicle ever built.
It's a one-of-a-kind laboratory orbiting about 250 miles above the Earth.
And we perform experiments on the International Space Station.
We can do science, we can do experiments, we can learn how to do things out of this world. And the result will help benefit the people on the ground.
The space station really provides an opportunity to explore, for example, say medical applications.
The aging and the osteoporosis and muscle wasting conditions are greatly accelerated in microgravity.
The weightless environment will give us insights into things like diabetes and maybe even cancer.
Understanding those phenomena allow us to look at how we can improve treatment of disease here on Earth.
If we wouldn't have conducted experiments on the ISS, we wouldn't have known that you could use cold atmospheric plasma in such broad application areas we're now exploring.
One of the most promising results has been gained by studying a protein associated with Duchenne muscular dystrophy.
We may be able to slow the disease by half, potentially doubling the lifespan of many of these DMD patients.
We provided eyes-serve imagery for many natural disasters, including floods and fires, for deforestations, for volcanic eruptions, and for earthquakes. So it was really a fantastic example showing how imagery from the International Space Station could be used in these times of dire need.
This was when we realized we had a chance to make a difference in the world using the same technology that was used by NASA, but applied in a remote area of a developing country.
I think it's made people much more aware of the issues of water quality. That's a very powerful thing.
Having the HICO on the International Space Station has been the ideal test bed for our research.
We can monitor these water bodies from space, and if we can reduce exposures both to humans and even animals, then we've achieved our goal.
And now today, we're able to operate the largest fleet of Earth imaging satellites in human history.
And none of that would have been possible without the International Space Station.
The space station has done so many things for life on planet Earth. It shows us what human beings can do working together. It shows the science that we can discover.
Over 2,000 experiments have flown on board ISS. 170 countries around the world have participated in some fashion, either in the ISS itself or in one of the experiments. Our rate of research is actually increasing. We're doing more today on board the space station for research than we have ever done before, and that's only going to continue in the future.
And so what we're seeing today is a proliferation of new ideas and new concepts. It's almost like it's a renaissance of what's happening in space. Buckle up and strap down, because this is going to be a rocket for all of us in the global community to be part of.